These days, it can be hard to trust the media. What's true, what's fake, and who is behind the message? I'm a freelance journalist and videographer who has spent years studying the media. Now I'm taking a look at what local, regional, and national news stories mean to us here in North Central Washington. I'm Dominick Bonny, and this is Common Sense. Hello, and welcome to another episode. Today, I'd like to talk about truth decay. No, not tooth decay, truth decay, and why it's a problem for all of us Americans, and even us right here in North Central Washington. First, let's start by defining what it is. Here's a quick breakdown by the RAND Corporation, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit research institution.
We hear a lot about fake news, but in the United States, we're facing a much bigger problem. We've reached a point where we no longer agree on basic facts. And if we can't agree on what is objectively true, how can we tackle big issues like improving education, the economy, or the environment? The RAND Corporation, a nonprofit, nonpartisan research institution, found a complex set of phenomena at work. Truth decay happens when people disagree about basic objective facts. People no longer trust credible sources of information. Opinions drown out facts. And the line between opinion and fact blurs to the point where facts are not only disputed more, but rejected and ignored. We've seen a similar phenomenon at least 3 times before in U.S. history. But the increasing disagreement over basic facts is something new. It's unique to our time and has been escalating since before 9/11. Our brains are hardwired to reject information that contradicts our beliefs. Round-the-clock news and social media spread information, real and fake. Political and economic polarization make it hard to talk to each other. And a strained education system struggles to keep up with a rapidly changing information system and to provide us with the critical tools we need to recognize false information and resist bias. Intentionally or not, the agents of truth decay make the problem worse, and often do so for political or economic gain, leaving us unable to have serious debates, facing serious political stalemate, and struggling with alienation and disengagement from civic and political institutions. So, have we lost our grip on reality? Not yet. In business, technology, even in sports, we depend on hard, honest data to make good decisions. It's mainly in our civil and political discourse that we see the most corrosive effects of truth decay, and where it stands to do the most damage. The challenge presented by truth decay is great, but the cost of inaction is far greater. RAND has an ambitious plan for future research to identify workable solutions and to promote a simple and once universal idea: that facts matter.
Facts matter. It seems like such a simple idea that it should go without saying, but it needs saying, apparently. Let's start at the national level. We are all well aware of President Trump's refusal to concede the 2020 election, which he lost. Not surprisingly, the president has turned to his favorite combo as a response: lawsuits and conspiracy theories. Trump, quote, has been personally obsessed with the baseless Dominion claims and has asked campaign officials, as well as national security officials in the government, about the company, end quote, reports the Washington Post. And like clockwork, Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal lawyer and man in charge of Trump's election challenge, took to the cable news airwaves, spinning a yarn about a, quote, radical left company called Smartmatic and its connection to another company called Dominion, which he claims is the product of an international conspiracy, including George Soros, the Chinese Communist Party, and Hugo Chavez, who died in 2013. Giuliani's claims have been debunked by fact-checkers from every reputable news source. Twitter flagged the tweets as misleading, and this nonsense has even been debunked by Trump's own government. In a statement from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, an arm of the Department of Homeland Security, they declared, quote, "There is no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised," end quote. In fact, officials in that agency were so confident to say that, quote, "The November 3rd election was the most secure in American history." Right now across the country, election officials are reviewing and double-checking the entire election process prior to finalizing the result, end quote. But the fact that this has been the most secure election in American history hasn't stopped some from drinking the Kool-Aid and jumping on the Stop the Steal bandwagon. But what is Stop the Steal, and where did the catchy phrase come from? Well, spoiler alert, it's an idea that didn't start in 2020. Back in 2016, Roger Stone, a veteran Republican operative and self-described dirty trickster, set up a website through his political action committee called Stop the Steal. It was originally a weapon crafted for use against other Republicans in the 2016 GOP primaries. They were expecting Trump to be pushed out of the primary by more conventional candidates, and the plan was to ask for money to fight the results. But Trump won that primary, as we all know, and Stop the Steal went on the shelf. Fast forward to the 2016 general election, and Trump won again. And again, Stop the Steal was mothballed, ready for whenever Trump lost. In the meantime, Stone was busy with his own problems, like being sentenced to 40 months in prison for obstruction, making false statements, and witness tampering in the Russia investigation, a sentence which Trump commuted in July. But then Trump lost in November 2020, and guess what? All of a sudden, Stop the Steal is back, just in time to galvanize a base of supporters who are madder than a nest of hornets after getting the hose. So how did Stop the Steal take root in the collective psyche of Trump world, and how are the concepts that advance truth decay like this cropping up on more local levels? Well, stay tuned after the break because we're going to take a look at Loren Culp, his refusal to concede the governor's race, and his own fundraising efforts. I'm Dominick Bonny, and this is Common Sense.
While it may be hard to resist those big brown eyes and pleading face, many people aren't aware that people food can be dangerous to pets. And it's not just because of the added weight gain. Some foods are downright dangerous, including chocolate. For a detailed list of dangerous foods, go online to pawsandclawsvh.com. If you suspect your pet has eaten something dangerous, please call Dr. Shauna Baez and her staff at 888-PAWS, as your pet's health is important to us.
Visit the Chelan Valley for the first annual Small Town Holiday Celebration featured at these local merchants. Bear Foods is the place to find everything you need for a happy and healthy holiday. From great food to great gifts, it's all here in downtown Chelan's classic grocery mercantile. When in Chelan, do not miss One Wines. It could be the most unique and intimate wine tasting experience you will find. Find it at One Wines, the definitive boutique winery in Chelan. Be a part of Small Town Holidays now playing throughout the Chelan Wine Valley.
Mary Maids of Wenatchee believes a clean home is a happy home. Mary Maids provides holiday cleaning services to cheer about. Don't let the seasonal cleaning ruin the festive fun. Mary Maids can simplify your life at a great value. It's never too soon to start planning a holiday-perfect home. Mary Maids of Wenatchee happily offers a worry-free guarantee. Locally owned and operated, let Mary Maids do the cleaning while you focus on your family and friends. Call Mary Maids today.
Welcome back. If you pay even passing attention to Washington state politics, you probably know that Loren Culp, the Republican challenger to Jay Inslee for governor, has followed Donald Trump's lead and refused to concede an election he clearly lost. And just like Trump, Culp is asking for your money to help him in his fight. Also like Trump, Culp is willing to undermine the credibility of a voting system because of an election result he doesn't like. In addition to blaming a fabricated horde of illegal immigrants for voting, he tacitly makes the claim that so many deceased Washingtonians voted that it affected the outcome of an election he lost by nearly 550,000 votes. That's more than 500,000 people. That's a lot of dead people and illegal aliens who have it out for Loren Culp. That's like if all the walkers from the Game of Thrones series came down from the frozen north just to vote for Jay Inslee. Although I have a feeling the immigration Culp is worried about isn't coming from up north. Displaying his trademark lack of charisma, Culp has been taking to Facebook Live to reach his followers each week in a video series called Lunch with Loren. And between baseless conspiracy theories about voter fraud, he makes sure to ask for your donations to support the investigation. Here are a few highlights, or should I say lowlights, from a recent broadcast.
Good afternoon, you guys. Welcome to another Lunch with Lauren. It's Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. I appreciate you guys jumping on here. Hi, Al. How you doing? Hope you guys have big plans for Thanksgiving. I know we do. Barb's already baking a pie. It's sitting on the counter, in fact, right now, already done. So getting ready for some turkey tomorrow. And hope you guys are planning a great day. Hope that you're getting together with your family, giving thanks. That's, after all, what it is, right? It's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, right? Giving thanks for everything that we have. Hi, Karen. Hi, Stan. Hi, Don. So we need to give thanks tomorrow. And if you're a church-going person, you need to give thanks at church too, and sing loud and proud. Loud and proud. Don't buy into the garbage that's coming out of the dictator-in-chief here in the state. Sing loud and proud. I know that I've been contacted by some pastors, and they're doing just that. That's what worship is all about. That's what Thanksgiving is all about.
Now, I'm going to interrupt Lauren here for just a minute because this is a familiar shtick. He's playing the victim card, pretending like a group, this time it's Christians, is somehow being persecuted. It's a tactic used to create an us versus them scenario and sell his followers on a narrative that they are culture warriors standing up for God himself. The fact is that no one is persecuting Christians in this country, and this is a mind game. But let's let Lauren continue.
So I appreciate you guys jumping on here. Let me give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with the election. We're filing some audits, recounts in some specific counties and specific precincts in those counties to look at what's going on, because there's some things that don't add up. We have been in contact with the president's legal team as well as Mrs. Powell. We don't know where that will lead, but we're working every angle, working everything that we can to get some help here in Washington State. It's a lot of data to go through, you guys. We shouldn't have to be finding these things, but let me give you a few tidbits. So far, we've found about 7,500 people who died, dead people, on the voter rolls. And we're just beginning, right? How many will we find? I have no idea. So far, 7,500 dead people are still on the voter rolls. How many of them voted? How many will there be that we find eventually? I don't know.
That's quite a claim, and one he doesn't back up with any evidence throughout the entire live stream. If I was making such a serious claim, I would provide evidence or at least point to a source where I got that information. But that's just me. Let's skip over Culp's conspiracy theories about illegal aliens and felons voting and get right to his attempt to undermine our state's election system at the most fundamental level.
How else can our elections be more secure? Right? When they're mailed in, nobody knows who's handling that. There's no chain of custody, either on the way to you or from you on the way back. There's no chain of custody. And I guarantee you that evidence will not stand up in a court of law without a chain of custody. Excuse me. Have some more freedom juice. Election integrity is very important. And this road that we're going down right now is not a good one.
Oh, excuse me, I was just having some freedom juice. But at least he said something here that we can all agree on. The road we're going down right now is not a good one. Casting doubt on the integrity of our election system undermines the foundation of our democracy. And his claim that no chain of custody exists, that's just not true. And if you're a regular viewer of this show, you will remember my two-part interview with Chelan County Auditor Skip Moore before the elections, in which we spoke at length about our voting system and how incredibly difficult it is to commit voter fraud in our state, specifically because of the chain of custody, as Culp puts it. But don't take my word for it. Listen to our county auditor, who is a Republican. Here he is responding to my question about votes from deceased Washingtonians. What about claims that people can vote for dead relatives? Does it hold water here?
No, it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is, again, several things can happen. A person can, obviously, if they get a hold of somebody's envelope when we mail them out, and let's say somebody has passed, and it comes to the residence. Well, the key is when that person tries to, if they are attempting to vote for a relative that's passed or doesn't live there anymore, it's the signature. Unless they're a real good forger, they're not going to be able to, they can't do it, because we check the signature on every one. As well as along the lines of where when people have passed, we are constantly checking our records against state databases, on Department of Health databases on deceased, as well as we actually daily go through the obituaries in the newspaper. And so when we see either through the state system, through Department of Health, that someone's passed, or if we see it in the newspaper, we will flag that voter in our voter registration system as deceased, so that when, if a ballot were to return, right off the bat, the system would go, wait a minute, we show this voter to be deceased. So that immediately would cause a challenge and further review and investigation to see why we've got it and whether or not it should be counted. The deceased part, when we catch it, we mark them in the system. That catches one side. If for some reason we weren't notified or haven't realized that the person has passed, it comes back to the signature. The person who's submitting this would have to fake or forge somebody else's signature. And we check every signature. That's the big safeguard in vote by mail, is we do check every signature against what's on file. And that is the controlling factor.
You can watch the full interview with Auditor Moore if you go to NCWLIFE's website and find Common Sense under the Full Episodes tab at the top. Kim Wyman, our Secretary of State, is also a Republican, and her office released a statement that said they found no irregularities in the election. But Culp is not a fan of Wyman, which I'm sure comes as no surprise, and he says as much at the end of his Thanksgiving live stream, while also making sure to ask for money.
We need to have integrity in our voting system, and we don't now. Personally, I think that our Secretary of State should be ashamed of herself. Touting this unsecure way of voting to not only our state but other states. It's very, very expensive to ask for an auditor recount. It costs a lot of money. So if you can afford to donate, I put the link in this post.
But why does Lauren Culp persist in this post-election campaign to undermine our voting system here in Washington State? I'm not sure, but I do find it ironic that the guy who in a debate said he would do away with research studies if he was elected is now very interested in researching and studying our ballots. But the question I am really interested in is this: can we expect more of this behavior on an even smaller scale in the future? Will the loser of a county commissioner or mayoral race claim that the vote was rigged when he or she loses an election, even in a landslide? Will our county sheriffs cry fraud and cover up if they lose their races? It's hard to imagine that, and I would like to think that our local elected officials have more integrity and class than Lauren Culp and the current president of the United States, which is a phrase that boggles the mind when said aloud. Stay tuned after the break, because I want to examine what political sideshows like Trump and Culp's could actually be costing the Republican Party, and ask why the Democratic Party's messages and platform hold virtually no appeal in rural America. I think it's also worth asking if the Democratic Party even cares. See you after the break.
Choose the pros. Alignment Pros. When your vehicle needs brakes, shocks, struts, or alignment, choose the experts in their field. Alignment Pros and Express Lube with a 5-star rating. The work they perform on your vehicle is as impeccable as their shop. With state-of-the-art equipment, Alignment Pros can handle all large or small vehicles, specialty cars, lifted or lowered. Alignment Pros does them all. Keep your car in top shape at Alignment Pros and Express Lube in East Wenatchee.
If you want to learn more about the world of real estate here in North Central Washington, we have you covered. At Home with NCWLIFE. Join Crystal Hughes for a weekly dive into all things real estate. She'll sit down with agents, home inspectors, and professionals from throughout the real estate industry to help you either buy, sell, build, or improve your home. That's At Home with NCWLIFE. Saturday and Sundays at 10:30 and throughout the week here on your local TV station, the NCWLIFE channel.
Businesses and individuals have trusted the experienced professionals of financial alternatives for their retirement and investment needs for 40 years. They offer a broad range of investments, annuities, and insurance solutions for people and businesses throughout Washington. Financial Alternatives will assist you in making informed decisions for your future. Call Financial Alternatives today and meet with their advisors.
Dr. Wayne Latimer's Chiropractic and Integrative Multicare specializes in all level of injury care. If you've been injured in an auto accident, on the job, have a sports injury, or a simple fall, call today for a free consultation. They offer a combined multi-care approach with medical, chiropractic, physical therapy, massage, and acupuncture. For relief from long-standing injuries to basic solutions for the weekend warrior, Latimer's Chiropractic Integrative Multicare is one stop, one location.
Welcome back. After a candidate or a national political party suffers a defeat, they usually do something called an autopsy. They go back through the campaign and examine their strategy and communications to look at where they went wrong. Then they compile a report of their findings that can be used by the party or other candidates in the future so they can avoid making the same mistakes. Sometimes the candidate even writes a book about what she learned during the autopsy to try to put her own spin on newly minted history, like what Hillary Clinton did with her book titled What Happened, which came out right after her loss to Trump. Losing can be a lucrative venture if you play your cards right. Cha-ching. But in conventional times, refusing to concede an election you clearly lost might not only cost your party and future candidates valuable insight, it could cost you future elections. But these aren't conventional times. And I actually don't think there will be any backlash for Trump or Culp for refusing to concede. And there are two reasons why. The first is that political ideology for millions of people has become a part of their identity. With the fervor of a diehard sports fan or religious fanatic, these new political animals see compromise as weakness and view the political process as a zero-sum game which can only go one of two ways. You either win or you lose. Winner takes all, and if you compromise your position, you compromise your very identity. This is incredibly dangerous in the way that you approach politics. And if you're interested in this trend, which has been on the rise since way before Trump, I suggest checking out Why We're Polarized by Ezra Klein. The second reason Republicans might not be in as bad of shape after Trump's loss as the Democrats were after Jimmy Carter's re-election loss in 1980 is due to the ineptitude of the modern Democratic Party. Now, this is a topic I could do an entire series of episodes on, but for the moment, let's just focus on one aspect of this issue and ask the question, why are Democrats so unpopular in rural America? Well, let's start with the northern spotted owl. Now, what does this little guy here have to do with why Democrats are unpopular in rural America? Well, I'll tell you. In the 1990s, environmentalists used the Endangered Species Act to protect the owl's habitat, which is the densely wooded forests of the Pacific Northwest. These forests also represented a lot of jobs for timber cutters and mill workers from Omak, Washington to Roseburg, Oregon, and even farther south. The ruling environmentalist lawyers won in court served to effectively break the back of the timber industry in the Northwest, and that put a lot of people out of work. You also have to take into account that these were good, high-paying jobs held mostly by folks without college degrees. Now, this is just one example that I chose because it's from the Pacific Northwest. If you want to learn more about this specific issue, I suggest checking out the podcast called Timber Wars from Oregon Public Broadcasting. But other regulations were used to squeeze agricultural industries, which used to employ roughly a quarter of Americans after World War II. Today, 1.3% of Americans are farmers, and small independent farms are nearly extinct. Now, that's not just because of government regulations, of course. The increase in mechanization in every American industry across the board has resulted in the job market collapsing in what were once prosperous towns and cities across rural America. And independent farmers had a harder and harder time competing against large ag corporations that run operations in multiple states and even countries. Another reason good-paying blue-collar jobs left was NAFTA, or the North American Free Trade Agreement, which was negotiated by the Bill Clinton administration and led to millions of factory jobs being sent out of the country, where the cost of labor was so much cheaper. So it's easy to see why a lot of working-class rural Americans who may have once been employed on a farm or in a lumber mill or as a tree cutter in Washington and Oregon might feel overlooked and shortchanged by a Democratic Party that seems to only care about the coastal elites, as some call them. For a powerful look into one family's fall from grace over the course of a few generations in rural America after the jobs left and the drugs moved in, I suggest picking up a copy of Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance, or you could just check out the movie recently released on Netflix. But who can blame anyone for being less than enthusiastic about the Democratic Party and its current priorities? Well, words like socialist and communist get thrown around like confetti at a party on AM talk radio and what I like to call tinfoil hat TV. The fact is that the current Democratic Party platform under the incoming Biden administration is not radical in the least. The Biden administration is likely going to be a general continuation of the Obama administration. And Obama, as my esteemed guest and former legislator and mayor Earl Tilley said in episode 5 of this show, was basically Bush Jr. And we can expect similar center-left policies from the Biden administration. I mean, here's a guy that ran for president during a pandemic while some Americans were avoiding going to the hospital to treat COVID-19 because of a lack of medical insurance or ability to pay for treatment, and he didn't endorse Medicare for all, which would ensure basic health care for all Americans. It's a right that citizens in basically every other developed country on earth enjoy, but Americans don't. If Biden was a socialist or a communist or whatever, wouldn't Medicare for all be his first policy proposal? No, Joe Biden is not a socialist, and his decades-long record in Washington prove as much. But that fact doesn't really matter if we're living in a post-truth society, and some say we are. But taken to its logical conclusion, a world where alternative facts are as acceptable as the truth is untenable. Bridges would fall down because one person's mathematical opinion would be as valid as another person's engineering degree and years of experience. But unfortunately, truth decay is here to stay, I fear. And while Donald Trump and Lauren Culp are on their way out, I think there will be many more following in their footsteps who treat reality as if it's merely a competing narrative. Also unfortunate is the fact that simplistic and usually entertaining, at least when it comes to Trump, way in which fact-free candidates communicate will continue to be more captivating and easier to grasp than the Democrats' more complex and lukewarm policies and communication styles. There are many other factors at play here, of course, but the key point is that everyone suffers when we allow truth to decay to the point where there is no such thing as objective reality. When we look at reality and try and focus on approaching issues with a dispassionate and logical mind, it becomes easier to objectively analyze how we got to where we are, in spite of our political bias. Indeed, acknowledging our bias is an important part of the process because it allows us to approach reality with a more objective mind. That doesn't mean that we can erase bias completely, but acknowledging it and factoring it into how we analyze reality and come to conclusions is essential to being a thinking person. And the system of government under which we live was founded on the idea of participation in that government by an educated and therefore thinking group of people is essential. As Thomas Jefferson is credited with saying, quote, "An educated citizenry is a vital requisite for our survival as a free people," end quote. And like the smart lady in the video at the beginning of this episode said, if we can't agree on what is objectively true, how can we tackle big issues like improving education, the economy, or the environment? Truth decay, it's a big problem, and while it's not going away anytime soon, it's something that we have to call out where we see it and hold ourselves accountable if we're actively contributing to the problem. Join me next time for Common Sense.
I'm Nicholas Kawili, music director and conductor of the Wenatchee Valley Symphony Orchestra, and you're watching the NCWLIFE channel.